I just wanted to move on from economics for a moment and asked you about what about politics and how's that changing? And you came up with some astounding data about what are the trends across the world now. There's a global anti-incumbency trend that's rising, you're saying.
Yeah.
In the boom years, almost 2/3 of governments who went for elections got re-elected. And now it's down to a 50-50 chance. So the worse your economy does, I suppose it's obvious, but the data really highlights that. If your economy doesn't get well, you get kicked out.
Yeah, so in terms of, we had to look at the 30 largest democracies in the world and what's happening there on the political front.
Right.
And as you said, that during the boom years, 2/3 of the leaders were getting elected. But this decade, over the last 5 years or so, that number shifted to 50-50. And in fact, I suspect this number is going to get only worse because the approval ratings are so low.
Right.
So, I mean, even this year, we have elections coming up in Taiwan where the incumbent has a popularity rating of around 10% again.
Higher than his inflation rate.
Because Taiwan inflation rate is only 2%. And you have Brazil where the leader could well get impeached this year. So I think
it's going to be lower than 50%.
Yeah, 50% that there's a global anti-incumbency wave that's building. It's leading also to the rise of some fringe parties. And even in places like the United States, we have seen that trend take place. So I think this is something which is the natural fallout of this weak economic environment, and also the fact that many leaders across the world just haven't stepped up and shown this, great sort of leadership in the recent past.
We're going through a phase of lack of great leadership. But you also pointed out in the political sort of sphere that it's a terrible time for global conflict and violence. And if you look at that data, that is also kind of worrying given the overall downturn. 2015, we've seen the highest number of violent conflicts, deaths through violent conflict. That's a real high, almost 100,000. Talking about Syria and terrorism and all other, and this in the post-Cold War era, highest since then?
Yeah, this is not the kind of data that we sort of touch and feel every day. But this is something that I came across in terms of to tell us that what's really happening in the world.
Because that does affect everybody.
Because heightened geopolitical risk is something which people take into account, and we are seeing that sort of escalate. Right. So it really sort of shows that at many levels, so many trends that dominated the global economy and global politics in the post-Cold War era. You had much greater global trade. You had many more new leaders coming to power and sort of doing the right thing. And you also had a trend where global growth was very high. Many of these trends are reversing now, and this is just part of that narrative. That this trend also about this sort of extended period of peace, we're seeing some cracks in that. So I think that this is what sort of captures the anxiety that so many people are feeling today, and why is it that we have these massive volatile moves taking place in stock markets across the world. This sort of captures it.
Of course, the violence and the downturn is a correlation. We don't know which is the causation.
Right.
We don't know whether the downturn is causing more upheavals or upheavals making people more nervous, and there's a downturn.
Yeah.
There's a certain correlation which is fascinating. Ruchit, thanks very much, but I'm going to ask you to work a little hard. I know you're not used to working hard, but just let's go quickly through these 10 categories that we've just been through.
Sure.
Now, number one, you said that global recession happens every 8 years.
On average, yes.
And the last one was 7 years ago.
Right.
Would you like to add something?
No, I think that that you just have to sort of change your orientation. That at the start of the cycle, we were all looking for opportunities. Where where can we sort of see growth increase, and where are the investment opportunities? I think that the orientation now is much more towards the fact that we have to be cautious. We have to look at where the risks are in the world and what can possibly cause the global recession. And beyond a point here, I mean, in terms of the fact that we have to also put this in perspective, that that this is part of life, that you have global recessions.
Upturn, then you have a
yes,
downturn.
I mean, the United States has been the premier economy in the world for the last century. It's faced a dozen recessions. It's faced a Great Depression. So nothing is permanent. Impermanence is the key here.
I think the beauty of your data there is that it happens like almost on average every 8 years. You know, people say ups and downs, but is it 20 years? Is it 5 years? So, I mean, it's not going to be exactly 8 years maybe, but it's imminent.
That's right. It would seem to based on historical pattern.
Of course, second is your key point, is that China is the weakest link.
Yeah, because in terms of the amount of debt that they've taken post the 2008 financial crisis. So this is the largest debt binge that any developing country has been in, and the history of this suggests that you have a price to pay for it, and so therefore the Chinese economy is likely to keep slowing over the next few years. Yes. I think that is a big trend.
Because they've had a 5-year of 72% increase in their